All right, let's get started. Fran, thank you so much for coming. We are very excited.
Thank you for having me.
We have been talking about investing in the group for a little while, and we have all sorts of questions. So I'm very excited to jump into this with you. For everyone in the group, everyone knows me already, so we'll brush past that. I'm Mariam, you guys, co-founder of MoneyGirl, as we all know. Now, Fran, who we have here, is a wealth advisor, an award-winning financial advisor. She has founded Intuitive Money and is the co-founder of Insight Financial Partners, and she's currently at Nexia. And you will see the account that Fran is on with us on Instagram, so you can go and follow Fran for ongoing updates as well. Fran, thank you so much for coming. We have a range of questions from before investing, starting to invest, and then investing during a downturn. How does that sound?
Sounds good.
All right, okay. I'll jump right into it and I'll try to get as many questions out as I can, you guys. You've sent us a lot of questions. Thank you for that. Whatever is left, we will try to cover at a different time. Okay, Fran, so question number one. What are the first 3 steps to take before I start investing?
Yeah, great question. You know, what I have found is just as you start even thinking about contemplating about investing is determining how much you can invest. You know, our biggest asset is actually our cash flow. So the money coming in and the money going out. Once you kind of determine how much you can keep, wealth is determined by how much you can keep as opposed to how much you can spend. And by doing so, then you can start building up what would look like as the amount that you would look at investing. They're the first key steps. I talk about the 3-jar philosophy. And so what the 3-jar philosophy is, for every dollar that you earn coming into your pocket, you might consider 3 areas that you might put that into. And the first one always is, unfortunately, our spending. So that's our living expenses. You start with that jar. And then the second one might be, well, it might be something that you might want to put aside for whether it is to make a difference, whether it is into your life, or whether it is for a rainy day. That's kind of the third jar. Sorry, that's the second jar. Now the third jar, now there lies your investment. That's the amount that you can put aside and totally forgetting it. So what I mean by that is that you're paying it forward to your future self. You're putting the money aside in the third jar to invest in your future self. So how much can you put aside in your third jar without having to touch it for 12 months? That's your first key to investing.
Okay. And so that actually somebody had actually asked that, when do I start? What is the minimum amount that I should start with? Because one of the concerns that as inexperienced young people we have is, I will start investing when we don't really know what comes after that. So it is completely arbitrary when I have X. And that isn't really set in any real goal. So what should define that when for us?
Yeah, great point. And look, what I also want to open up with is the sheer knowledge that we have today is very generic. So not knowing necessarily your own personal circumstances, it will just come back to what is right for you. And today's discussion is very much at the education level. So coming back to how much, look, if I can share some stories, and over the years, there's been many stories of clients that have put money aside. But one that's close to my heart is one that, and it's so new. So my 19-year-old daughter, as you can imagine, being a mum of a financial planner and I love financial literacy, and I'm a financial well-being advocate. They've learned from a very young age about the power of savings. And so one little key thing, if I was to encourage anyone, is something that she also taught me, is that she mapped out the numbers 1 to 100. And I've seen this on social media as well. If you map out the numbers 1 to 100, so starting from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, each day, so over the next 100 days, each day she would say to herself, how much can I save today? And she'll pick out a number that would determine how much she would save today. And it might be today, you might be able to put away $5. Great. And then, or tomorrow, it might be that you might be able to put away $65. You put that away. Over 100 days, you actually come away with over $5,000 if you're able to do it. That's a simplistic way of looking at it. Now, if I think back to when I was her age, at the age of 19, and I also, after 12 months of my first job, I was able to put away the equivalent to around about $5,000. In my mind, that amount can be put away without me having to touch it. And it's only at that point where I decide, where do I want to invest it in? And then we'll go into the discussion of how do we invest, where do we invest it?
Okay. So related to that, once I do start investing, is there a magic percentage that I should be investing? Because that's something we read a lot. 30% is the magic number.
Yeah. Well, if I could only share with you the life cycles, as a young 19-year-old, a young 20-year-old, and I'm looking at this beautiful group that you're starting out, and as you're starting out, you might find that you haven't got a lot of commitments as far as expenses. My encouragement to you there, it might be that it allows you to save 50% of your income. Or it might, so for example, my 21 and 19-year-old girls were able to save pretty much 50% of everything they earned. But once again, it comes back to how much you need to live on. So I go back to those 3 jars again. How much do you need to cover your living expenses? How much can you kind of put away for a rainy day? And how much can you invest in yourself further down the track? The range, so come back to what it is that might be ideal, sits between 10 to 25%.
10 to 25%. Okay. All right. And if we go by the jar philosophy, Fran, does that mean my saving for a rainy day comes before investing? Is that kind of the priority that it goes in as well?
Yes. So they say that in order to create a habit, we've got to be doing it 21 times. And so my encouragement, even before investing, is start creating a habit that allows you to put money away. That is what we refer to as capital in the investing world. Put money away so that you can continue to invest. Because what you don't want to happen is to decide that you want to invest an amount that you might need tomorrow, because I'm going to talk about time versus money in the investment field.
Amazing. Okay, so one of the questions we had was financial strategy versus financial habits. You said it's important to establish the habit of putting a certain amount of money away regularly, because then you invest at any point, you have already practiced putting that money away and you don't need it elsewhere.
Mm-hmm.
So do you wait until you sit down with, say, like a financial planner or advisor like yourself, and you have a clear, 40-year goal and strategy in place before you put any money away? Or should I start putting even little bits away? Say I can only put away $20 a week after all the other jars are filled, towards an investing account. Now, I can't invest $20 on the go, but I can put it away for now to be invested.
Mm-hmm. So with the philosophy of investing is, firstly, you can invest in, so the 3 areas that you invest in. Number 1 is cash. So by putting money away, you're actually investing in any case because you're investing into a bank account. Now, whether that is an interest-bearing bank account or not, you're still investing. Number two is shares. So the next level, we talk about beginner, intermediary, and advanced. So when you kind of start with cash, firstly, you really get to know the format of investing, what the fundamentals of investing look like. And then secondly, you can then move up the scale to what do I want to invest in? And my encouragement to you around the next level, just as anything in life, is then getting to know what it is that you need to invest in. And is it shares? Is it property? The other two asset classes that you can invest in. What I would actually think about is the fundamentals of investing, but also the 3 steps of investing is pick, blend, invest. And I want to map that out a little bit more. So if you were to pick the types of investments, is getting to know what type of investments it is. You'd also look at blending. So you don't want to put all your eggs in one basket and having a diversified portfolio. And once you do that, then you'll be comfortable and confident to invest. It's pick, blend, and invest. What I refer to as PBI.
PBI, love it. So you're actually thinking about then how the diversification before you're actually even investing.
Yep. So one of the questions, I guess, which was asked was, would we consider something like an index fund?
Mm-hmm.
And so if we talk about the fundamentals of investing, where would you invest? And coming back to your question, I suppose I want to circle back to your question, how much would you start investing in? Mm-hmm. It also comes back to that there is a cost in investing into that next level. So if you invested in cash, there is really no cost to you as far as financial costs or the cost of entry. So by investing in cash, you get to really work out the habits of investing. Now you're ready to move to the next level, which is then you're going to part with some costs of establishing your investment account. And that's why you need I suppose, a substantial amount before you invest.
Mm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay, got it. So now say I have thought about diversification. I've thought about where I want to invest. What are the first 3 things I do to start?
Mm-hmm. The first step I would recommend is to get to know the investment styles. So the best place to get to know and to also trial it and work through it is through your superannuation account. Everybody's got one, but research shows that about 66% of us might not actually take too much notice of our superannuation account, especially in the early days of building out your super. But your super is actually the best tool and platform for you to work through what are the investment styles. And within your superannuation account, depending on where you're at, you've got a choice of individual type investments or blended investments. So what I mean by that is you could actually pick some asset classes, so Australian shares, international shares, fixed interest. And if you're not sure what that means, you could already have one already blended by the super fund. It's called conservative, it's called moderate, it's called balanced, growth, or aggressive. That's kind of the blended approach. And that's why I talk about pick, blend, and then invest.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so if you're not at a point where you're confident enough to do the blending yourself, you can go and pick these ready-made kind of options from your super.
Yeah, it's like a fruit salad, isn't it? You know, you have a particular taste for maybe apples, and so you pick apples, but then you consider, well, I only like apples. Well, actually, maybe oranges might go best with the apples, or maybe strawberries might go better with the apples. Maybe I'm going to add some bananas in that fruit salad. Actually, I don't really know what the mix is best for me. I might go to the shelf where there's already fruit salad made up for you.
That's right. Yeah. So, okay, that's a good way to explain it. So this is with its super. Within other like managed funds and all in other areas that I can invest, is there also an option to just go and say, give me this ready-made option instead of me figuring out my own blend?
Great question. So I come back to the question around index funds. If you wanted to invest and you wanted to pick the investments for yourself, you could, for example, look at some direct shares. You might look at, maybe I might invest in a very well-known name and brand like Woolworths. Or maybe I might invest in a very well-known brand such as one of the banks, Westpac or Commonwealth Bank. Or maybe I might invest in Wesfarmers. Hang on, I really don't know which ones to start with. What if I could go to and manage funds, such as an index fund, that's got it already made and blended for me, and all I need to do is pick that one and not have to worry about which one to pick, which individual share to pick. I've already got a blended approach and I invest in that. And so that's what we refer to as a broad investment approach. You don't have to worry about individual underlying investment. You have to look at the one that's already ready-made for you.
So speaking of ready-made options, Fran, a lot of young people use micro-investing apps.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we were having a discussion in the group around what are some of the pros and cons of using micro-investing apps. Are they, I suppose the question was, Hannah, correct me if I'm wrong, you're here as well. Is that something worth doing? And if so, how do you pick which one you're investing in?
Yeah, great point. So before I answer that, perhaps you might want to elaborate a little bit more of the types of micro investment platforms and or tools already been mentioned. And then I can go a little bit further as to what that means.
Yeah, absolutely. So some of the common names that have been mentioned in the group are Spaceship, Raise. If there's anything else, guys, please comment. But those are the two off the top of my head that I can think of.
Mm-hmm. Great. So with something like Raise, so I come back to that blended approach. And the blended approach, Raise offers a blended approach called an exchange-traded fund. It's referred to as an ETF.
Yep.
And an ETF is very much an index fund. You could have, there's hundreds of them there, but essentially you're getting an index fund. I'm just a little bit distracted because I want to make sure that I'm not getting feedback on here. Mariam, is that okay?
I can hear you clearly. If anyone is hearing feedback, okay, thank you, Melissa. If anyone is hearing feedback, can you please just mention in the chat? If not, give me a thumbs up or something.
Awesome.
Okay, I'm a little echoey, but Fran is fine. Okay.
Mm-hmm. So with something like Raise, now before I go down the path of which platform suits or which platform is actually credible out there, my encouragement to you is do your research as well. At this stage, I'm not necessarily going to recommend one that's right, but because there is a whole range of them. Let me just go back to the original place that you would actually invest in, and that's what we call, on market. So you can buy a direct share on market through a share broker or any online broker facilities that are available on platforms. Now, Raise and the rest also now provide something similar, but they also offer exchange traded funds, which is ETFs. Mm-hmm.
And a very common question that we get in the group, what is an ETF and how is it different to an index fund? And are they the same? Are they different? Are they interchangeable?
Good question. when you comparing an ETF, the equivalent would be an ETF or a managed fund. So an ETF or a managed fund. And the difference is the managed fund you have to buy through, you can't actually trade it on market, you have to buy it through a platform. Whereas ETFs, you can buy it through on market. So it's tradable, it's liquid, and it's available to just about everybody.
Okay, so then do some of the even the ETFs that we see say that's a Vanguard S&P 500 ETF. Is that an ETF? Well, it says ETF, but how is that different to a managed fund that Vanguard might have?
Mm-hmm. So in ETF is such that you're buying shares. So they're actually very similar. That's the reality. They are actually very similar. The difference really, I suppose, at the core of it is that you can access ETFs at a lower rate. So you could buy, especially on raise, you can start off with an account of $1,000 to invest and then start topping it up every month. Whereas with managed funds, you need a higher level to get into a managed fund.
Ah, so could we possibly see ETFs as like a starting point? It's something we can start with a small amount of capital.
Hands up, who's familiar with the Raise account? Got a group here? Yeah, great. So Raise is one that it's so accessible, it's online. The younger generation love it because they can keep track, they can top it up, they can use it, they understand it, and it's at a lower bracket to be able to enter into Raise.
Right. And so Hannah is asking, Fran, there's so many to choose from. This is with index funds, not apps. How do you choose what you want to invest in? What are some questions I should ask myself when I'm choosing index funds?
Yeah, great question, actually. And so coming back to the pick, blend, and invest, PBI, the first thing you want to do is pick the right investments for you. And by the way, with every index fund, whether it is an ETF or not, if you go on to, for example, the one that's widely used is the Vanguard index funds. If you go on to the fact sheet, it'll tell you exactly what it's invested in. Now, the two areas that I'd encourage you to look at is firstly, what is your time that you need to invest it in, and what is your risk tolerance? So what does that mean? Time allows you to smooth out the volatility within the market. So that is, over a longer period of time, the average return on that investment would mean you'll come out a lot further up than you would if you said, look, I only want to invest it for 2 to 3 years. And you pick something that actually needs more of a 7-year time horizon, you might be in a worse place rather than a better position. Whereas if you have a look at the fact sheet, it will talk about here is what this particular index fund and ETF is suited for. Time versus your risk. So the two areas to look at when picking out the right blend to suit your goals.
Okay, two things to look at for how long I'm investing in and what is my risk tolerance. And Karen says, what is a red flag that I should look out for when I'm doing that assessment?
Well, the red flag is it's always got to come back to, yeah, look, it's a great point. I think the red flag, it's got to be how much risk, and I define risk as volatility. By the way, does anyone know how much movement the market has made in the last 2 months? So coming back to knowing what you're investing in, does anyone know where it is and where it's gone to?
Melissa, you unmuted yourself. Were you going to make a guess?
Yeah, so from the beginning of essentially
we can't hear you.
Really?
Oh, sorry, I can't hear you. Never mind, go ahead.
Okay, so from what I've seen from the beginning of the decline, it's gone down about 20 to 25%, maybe 30% in the last couple of days.
Yeah, so that's great. In fact, if you have a look at the movements within the market, and I'll give you an example. If the red flag you're looking at is I want to invest it in 2 to 3 years, but what I didn't understand is how the fluctuation within the value of the investment can go up and down. So I invested it in something that's a little bit more volatile, that it does actually go up and down a little bit more. By picking the wrong investment style that's going to suit your goals and your time frame, you might come out a little bit worse rather than in front. So that's actually looking at the red flag as how it's suited to your goals and what are you trying to achieve in the time and the return you're looking for.
I think that's a good segue into one of the most common things that we hear is time. What you're saying is think about your goal and your risk profile and the time that you're investing in. But one of the things, most common things people say is, should I pull out right now and invest later, or should I ride it out? When we say time, we're not thinking about our time, the goal, the time that is required to achieve our goal. We're thinking about time as in, can I time the market?
Right. So I'm understanding what you're saying there is that your concern is can you time the market, as opposed to time to access the investments to achieve my goals. Is that correct?
That's right. And how should I determine what is a good time frame for me? Should it be determined by market ups and downs, or if I have determined a certain time frame for myself, should I maintain that time frame regardless of what is happening in the market?
Yeah, great point. Comes back to what are you trying to achieve and what is the expected rate of return that you're looking for. So what I mean by that is the time. So what are you trying to achieve over a period of time? So if you are disciplined to have it invested over a period of 6 years, then you wouldn't worry about what's going on with timing the market right now. Mm-hmm. So I think about, for example, time is your friend. And when I first invested my first $5,000 way back when, I'm gonna give away my age now. So when I invested my first $5,000, it was back in 1996, and that's when the Commonwealth Bank was floated. And so I picked up about 1,000 Commonwealth Bank shares. Now, over that period of time, I've kind of just given it as much time. It's almost like baking a cake. You've got to give it enough time to sit in there. It's what we refer to as buy and hold. Is everyone familiar with that term, just buy and hold?
No, I think we would like to know what that means.
All right. So let me come back to buy and hold in a minute, but just coming back to my first investment of buying some Commonwealth Bank shares back in the day. I bought 1,000 shares at $5.40. And before this market downturn, Commonwealth Bank shares have been as high as $93 a share. And that's from what did I do? First thing is put money aside, money that I don't need to access anymore, invest it and give it time. So over that period of time, my 5,400 grew to 93,000 without me doing any more, but putting it away and giving it time to bake in the oven. Now, what we refer to as buy and hold is when you buy shares, you're buying it, holding it for the long term, so that particular parcel of shares starts to return money back to you. So it's buy and hold. And what that means is at the moment, Commonwealth Bank shares pay me in dividends more than the initial 5,400 that I invested it in. Mm-hmm.
Right. And so in your example, Fran, when the GFC happened back in 2008 and 2009, were you tempted to pull out all your investment because because the banks were going down, there was volatility, there was uncertainty.
Mm-hmm.
And how do you determine if you obviously didn't? How did you decide that you're not going to do that?
Mm-hmm. Great point. So if you buy quality, you buy it for the long term. We've all heard about blue chip shares. We've all heard about quality shares, and it's coming back to buy and hold. So when it buy and hold, you think of it almost like when there is a sale on. When the market goes down, it's almost like it's a sale on. So we think about Boxing Day sales, the same product or the same asset that you would normally buy at full price is now 50% off. But it's the same product and the same investments. Would you not rather go and buy more of it at 50% off than you would at full price?
Mm-hmm.
That's exactly coming back to why wouldn't you buy in a downturn market as opposed to selling out the downturn market. There's an article that I wrote also about behavioral finance. And behavioral finance talks about how we lead from either logic or emotion. And investing is all about logic. Is it logical to sell something at a fire sale? Or is it logical to buy more when the prices are down?
The emotions is fantastic, but one of the things I think somebody asked was, how often do I check? And I think that's where the emotions come in, because right now we're checking our supers. Those of us who are investing are checking our investments going down. And that's where the emotions come in, because people go like, well, if I just lost 12%, if I pull it out now, I might save myself from another 8%.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And then the question I would ask is, once again, coming back to that time question, when will you access the investments? Is it tomorrow? And I'm looking around the room right now, I'm assuming it's going to be more like 25 years.
That's right.
So if it's going to be 25 years, wouldn't it be logical to buy more units at a lower price so that when markets recover, you're actually getting an uplift on the value of your super funds rather than selling out, crystallizing, sitting on the side and losing money out of it? Does that make sense?
That does make sense. And so that's one of the questions we had was, is investing right now a great opportunity?
So without even answering it, I suppose I'll answer it out to the group. And I want to see a show of hands of the ones that I'm seeing on Zoom, and I want to say hello to the Instagram group as well. Put your hands up if you think it is actually quite logical to buy now rather than not.
Instagram, I'm watching you, so you can say hey yo in the comments. I can see you.
So buying two of the items or two of the items at the same full price, you're getting two for the price of one. Why wouldn't you buy it? And if the value then goes up, then you've suddenly got twice as much in value in your super.
That's right. And so should I not worry too much about watching my super and my investment portfolio go down every day during a volatile time like this?
Well, that's also another great question. I come back to having an awareness of where your super fund is. Research shows that 66% of working Australians actually don't take any note of where their super funds is at, what's it doing. And my encouragement around that for especially a young group is you are in a prime position to get to know what it is your superannuation does. Because if you were going to start, before even starting investing, that would be a great pilot case to work with. Can I make my super fund actually return better than market? Can I do it in a safe place? Because if you can do it in a safe place, then by investing down the track with your own money, as in the money that you have access to outside of super, then you will feel a lot more confident to make all the right decisions around investing.
That's right. And so with investing, during this time, during a market downturn, when everything is on sale, one of the concerns people in this group and a lot of young people have is investing in investing ethically and backing companies that they feel are doing the right thing, But there is very little knowledge of how to go about doing it because everyone defines what is ethical differently. And there are ESG funds, but then if you look at what's in there, you will inevitably find something you're uncomfortable with. So for someone who has considerations around investing ethically, what are some of the avenues that we can look at? What are some of, like, whether that's index funds or whether that's buying on the market, what are some things that we could look at?
Yeah. One of the questions here that I want to also answer is that sometimes you might find the website a little bit confusing. Sometimes when you're trying to dig through the knowledge piece or the information about an ethical fund, it could be a little bit confusing. What are they disclosing and what aren't they? My encouragement to you is to follow and invest in funds that have a proven record, that everything that they've got on their website is full and transparent. And there is a wide range of them, by the way. So, whether it is from a very well-known name, such as Perpetual, right through to the Australian ethical funds, they've got a proven record. Everything is on the website. They're very transparent as to how the investment, what is the investment philosophy. And once again, it's a personal choice. Ethical investment is very much a personal choice. My encouragement to you is to read through the product disclosure statements and work out whether it is the right fit for you.
And if we have questions around those funds, Fran, like say Australian ethical funds and stuff, where do we go to find answers? Who do we ask these questions?
Yeah, great point. So the first layer is always go first to the product provider. So ask questions. They usually have a call line. They usually have a call center that will answer all your questions around how they invest. If you had any kind of queries, specifically whether they're investing in a social enterprise or not, or whether they're investing in renewed energy or not. They're all the questions. If it's personal to you, you want to ask the questions to their call center. The second layer is you could actually meet with any financial advisor, and they can actually also find out the information for you because they're qualified to dig deeper into the types of investment that particular product would actually deliver.
Okay, so that is an acceptable thing to do. I can call the provider and say, do you invest in coal or not? And they should be able to answer me, and they should answer me. Yes?
Absolutely, absolutely. So the first disclosure is on their product disclosure statement. And if you can't find the right information that you're looking for there, then every product provider has a call center that you call on and ask specific questions and that's relevant to your investment style.
Okay, all right. Now moving into investing a little bit more, we have a few questions about the US stock market. One right here from Hannah is, if I want to invest in American shares, do I need to have an American TFN? Yeah, tax file number, equivalent, whatever. Yeah.
A tax file number is relevant to the country that you are a resident for. So a tax file number relates to the tax that you would pay on that investment. So to answer your question, if you wanted to invest in an international type fund, then you'd have to go to either an investment provider that has got an international fund that you can buy or sell. Now, ETFs have also got an international tip. So you can actually purchase that also online and directly with them. So you don't necessarily need a tax file number when you're purchasing international shares. When I say international shares, I mean international ETFs or international or funds that are actually invested in the international global sector.
And I am actually able to purchase those shares from Australian providers even.
That's
Isn't that
right. So some of the names, for example, would be Magellan is a very well-known international, an Australian fund that invests in the international sector. And you can also find them available as ETFs.
All right. And another question we had about the U.S. stock market was why there is a little bit of a bump in the U.S. stock market after there was a steep fall. Why does that happen? And what does that mean for people who want to invest in the U.S. stock market?
So when you say investing in the US stock market, as an Australian resident, what you're doing too is you're investing in ETFs that have got investments in the likes of Google, Microsoft, Amazon, that American feel, yeah? And just correct me if I'm wrong, what I got from your question was, why has there been a dip in the market and then a bump? Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. I guess that they're two very different questions and different answers. So firstly, if I could break that down to the first part, which is if you want to invest in the American companies, you firstly invest in Australian product providers that have got investments within the American companies, such as Amazon, Google, and so forth. The second question, why was there a bump? This comes back to the characteristic of investing in share markets. Share markets are they're forward projecting investment styles. So what that means is when there are movements within the share market, it's trying to predict what's going to happen within the fundamentals of the economy in 12 months' time. So when we saw a fall in the market, anyone guess why was there a fall in the market? I'm looking for answers on the Instagram as well as on here.
The chats are on in both platforms. Consumer confidence, Karen says.
Yeah, absolutely. It comes back to economics 101. What actually happens in economics, and what happens in business confidence, and what happens in consumer spending. What essentially are we investing in when we're investing in a company? We're investing in that company producing profits. Yeah. So when the consumer confidence is down and it's been hampered, chances are consumers won't spend. So therefore companies won't make as much profits in 12 months' time. So imagine the local cafe down the road. And 2 months ago, it was bustling. There were people eating, and there were people, he or she would have hundreds of people, customers every single day. The annual turnover of that business would be quite high, you would assume. What's happening today with isolation? Overnight, it's almost like the consumer confidence as well as profits has just come off the cliff. And so when you invest in a company, you're looking at what is their forward projected profits. And so we're investing in a particular share today, you're looking at what's going to happen in 12 months' time. When you invested in a particular share in February with the news that was coming out with isolation, then you know that the profits of that company is going to be dampened. That's why the share price dropped. Does that make sense? If it makes sense, put your hand up and let me know that that's making sense and is of value. Yeah.
Making sense? Yes. Instagram, you still with us? Okay. Okay. So then now there's a little bit of an uptick. And why is that happening? Is that because we're expecting isolation to end in a few months?
Mm-hmm. Potentially. So potentially if there is, so markets tend to work in a place where if there is uncertainty, investors move out of the market and stay on the sidelines before moving back into the market. When there is certainty, more investors will start buying into the market. So as an example, coming back to the cafe owner, if there's uncertainty of when he might open or she might open again, and have all those customers coming through and having beautiful cakes and coffees and lunches with him or her, then the investors will start seeing that profits will start to rise, and there's confidence. But whilst the doors are shut, there's no confidence, no clarity as to when the profits will come back to the cafe. And that's the same as what you're investing in when you're investing in the likes of the Amazons and the Googles and the eBay. What's happening within their profits, within the consumer confidence and business confidence.
So Fran, in times of
does
these,
that mean it's a good time for me to invest because I'm expecting that uptick to keep going up? Would that be the case, Fran?
Think of it also at a level of where we're at. In 12 months' time, if everything went back to normal, what would happen to the share price, do you think?
It would definitely be better than today because things are back to normal. So it would, yeah.
Mm-hmm. So it would certainly be a good time to consider if it's right for you to invest in.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much, Fran. Melissa, you came in briefly to say something. Sorry I cut you off. Please come back.
oh, good. Sorry, can you hear me? Is my mic on?
No, you're not on mute.
Okay, awesome. So Fran, I had a question. A lot of people are asking in these volatile times, when is a good time to actually put your money in? Like the market is going up and down. Should we be starting to actually buy once people are more confident in the market? Or should we just lump everything in today or tomorrow, just as soon as possible to, make the most out of this discount?
Well, great question. Thanks, Melissa. Back in my day, I also spent some time as a stockbroker. And as a stockbroker, we're always looking for value in the market, and we're buying in particular companies at a market price. But what I found as a financial planner, as well as a wealth advisor, it's time in the market, not trying to time the market. What does that mean? It means that if coming back to that relative time that you would invest in, if you had to invest it today and you didn't need it for another 5 to 10 years, would you worry about whether this today is the right time or tomorrow is the right time or 30 days is the right time? It comes back to your goals, the time you've got invested, and as an investor, you're not trying to time the market. You're trying to buy quality investments and being time in the market.
Totally
It's
agree.
like baking that cake again, having a bit more time to let it rise and have it beautifully baked.
I love that, Fran. I'm going to quote you on that. Time in the market, not timing the market.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay, so
Does that answer your question, Melissa?
Yeah, definitely. I think this would be a really good time to open up the floor, like open this up to more of a conversation so everyone can ask the questions that they want to if they haven't already in the chat, or like if we haven't covered it enough, if it didn't kind of come through, yeah, you can ask Fran directly.
Yes, people on Instagram, if you have questions that were not covered or were not covered enough, just type them in below and I'm keeping an eye on it.
One of the questions there I wonder if I could address is, which is a good one, how many companies should I invest in to have a good diversified portfolio, or do you look at it in a different way? And I come back to, it's a very general, in managed fund world, we talk about a minimum of 25 companies within a broader diversified portfolio. We won't cover it necessarily today, but I do run a whole webinar and session around, well, it's diversification across investments, it's diversification across companies. So what does that mean? If you pick, blend and invest, if you're picking individual stocks, then you're kind of betting against one particular horse to actually win that race. But if you actually have then a blended approach where you might have 25 companies within your managed funds, that will give you a broader investment approach. It won't necessarily, it will give you a safer investment approach. Then you won't actually have a higher risk to losing necessarily your capital funds. So to answer your question, in portfolio managers world, you would actually start with a very minimum of 25 stocks within a diversified portfolio. And then you'll actually go even further than that to talk about whether you diversify within Australian shares, international shares, fixed interest bonds, cash, and property and infrastructure. If you'd like to know a little bit more about them, please connect with me on either Facebook, Instagram, or drop me a line on my email address, and I can book you into the next webinar.
That sounds amazing. Thank you so much, Fran. If there's no other questions, nothing's come through on Instagram or Zoom, I will let Fran go now. Fran, thank you so much. For people in Zoom, please join the MoneyGirl Facebook group, because that is where any future updates will be posted. When Fran shares her webinar link, that's where I will share it. So if you haven't already, join the MoneyGirl Facebook group. We will be starting our 6-week program, MoneyGirl Bootcamp, to get your money bought in order in about 6 weeks' time. So all the updates will go to the MoneyGirl Facebook group. So make sure you're in there. And once again, thank you so much, Fran, for taking the time out and answering these questions. We've really been looking forward to this conversation.
You're welcome. If I was to encourage you to do anything, is to start. Just start with something small. Start with working through with what you have, which is your super fund, and yeah, make it happen. Because what I love about this group is you're amazing. You look absolutely gorgeous from where I'm sitting, and you've got the whole world ahead of you. Congratulations.
Don't we just? Yes, I love it. Just to start. Love it. Thank you so much, Fran. And we will speak to you soon, hopefully, in your webinar.
See you.
Bye, everyone. Thank you for
Bye.
joining in. Bye.